And now, of course, we've all been waiting for our special guest who has arrived in the Breakfast Show studios. And this time, we do have with us...
Hello and welcome to another DVSO video. My name is Jerry Coulter and I am the patron of the DVSO organisation, an organisation that represents victims. Victims of the authorities, and in particular the police, the Home Office and the whole judicial system that has let these victims down. I am a product of what the Dorset authorities made me. I don't live in Dorset, I live in Hertfordshire. Unfortunately, my Jeep that I had was stolen, sold to a car dealer in Dorset who had Masonic links through his brother, who was a Dorset police officer, and when I couldn't get my car taken into safe custody by Dorset police so that I could then recover it through legal action, I had the Deputy Chief Constable at the time, Andy May, actually involved in facilitating the theft and final loss of my vehicle, which naturally caused me to put in allegations against May, the Professional Standards Department. I even had a meeting with the Chief Constable that followed him in, James Stitchbury, all of which only ended up with them forcing allegations of criminal misfeasance into civil litigation where Dorset Police lied and basically perjured themselves to somehow convince a judge that I was vexatious after telling me that they weren't going to deal with any of my complaints and that I had to engage lawyers, something they knew that was a course of conduct that amounted to misconduct. I didn't have to go to the expense of engaging lawyers. They should have dealt with my complaints. That's what they had to do under statute law. They had no choice. However, civil litigation and criminal misfeasance and criminal complaints are two separate issues. Whatever happens in civil litigation is nothing to do with the fact that criminal offences committed by these police officers for misconduct in public office never go out of time. And as a result, again, acting on the advice of lawyers and counsel, I lobbied my MP, who happened to be Mike Penning, MP for Hemel Hempstead. Now, I know now Mike Penning is dyslexic, which might be a reason why he couldn't get his head around the lawyers' letters that were sent to him, or my case file detailing everything about the police misconduct and the fact that it was all centred around a senior ACPO officer in Dorset that everyone was closing ranks to protect at all costs. So my MP, Mike Penning, didn't want to know. In fact, he's ignorant. Penning is an extremely ignorant man, even on his own admission. This is the reason why I ask people, the voters in Hemel Hempstead, please do not vote for Penning. He is now the Police and Justice Minister. He is also the Minister for Victims. He is a Home Office Minister in charge of policing. This man is an ignorant man who did nothing about police misconduct just after he was elected into office. So all he's doing is coining it in. He's asking for another term of election where he is going to be paid substantial money for all his other cabinet positions, including being the policing minister.
You're welcome, and first of all, tell us your background, please.
Sorry?
About your background.
I suppose most people think that politicians, you know, went to school, got good grades, went to university, becomes, researchers. I didn't do that. I was very bad at school. I think the modern word is disruptive when I was at school. I now know partly why, not an excuse, partly why, because I'm dyslexic.
In fact, Mike Penning has served in the army and then the fire brigade prior to being elected as MP for Hemel Hempstead. So, again, to be the policing minister, the only qualification in life you need, really, is to be ignorant. Probably fits in well with these policemen that he's dealing with. In fact, other MPs in his own political party that have written to him in his capacity of policing minister involving the cases of victims in Dorset, Penning probably doesn't even read those letters. He probably has to have someone explain it to him if he can understand and comprehend what's going on with it. Because otherwise he wouldn't send the sort of letters that he sends in response or reply. That's if he dictated all or compose those letters rather than relying on some civil servant in the Ministry of Justice? This we don't know. Possibly it may account for a lot of things. Here we see Connor Burns, the MP for Bournemouth. Unlike Penning, when he's lobbied, he does something about it. He had two elderly gay gentlemen in Bournemouth who have suffered homophobic abuse from a family member, and then to compound matters further by Dorset policemen. Going on for years, a whole catalogue of police misconduct and homophobic abuse directed at these gentlemen, and finally it ends up with them lobbying Burns, which of course is the correct and proper way to go about it. Naturally, Burns took this up with his colleague in Parliament, Mike Penning, the policing minister. What Connor Burns can understand, but Mike Penning fails to understand completely, is the fact the reason it was reported to him was the gravity of what actually took place. The fact that these two gentlemen had made complaints about the Professional Standards Department failing to deal with their complaints and covering up allegations of misconduct. These complaints escalated to the Chief Constable, who then delegated these complaints and criminal allegations against Professional Standards Department officers back to the very officers that the criminal allegations were made against. It's like asking Ronald Craig to investigate Reggie. What Mike Penning's colleague Connor Burns can understand, but Penning can't, is that the Chief Constable of Dorset, Debbie Simpson, has had a case of police misconduct and the failures of the Professional Standards Department and the shortcomings of her officers reported to her, so that she will bring to account these officers for their misconduct. The fact that the Chief Constable will not take responsibility for this and sends it back to the officers that the criminal allegations are against is a clear course of conduct that amounts to misconduct. She knows she shouldn't be doing this. It is institutionalised misconduct. Therefore, it is only right and proper to make a criminal allegation against Debbie Simpson for a course of conduct that amounts to institutionalised misconduct, misconduct in public office, an indictable criminal offence. Here we see Martin Underhill, the Dorset Police and Crime Commissioner. He was elected to hold the Chief Constable to account for the actions of her officers. But then Underhill is a former senior police officer from Sussex who, immediately before he retired, was facing misconduct allegations himself. Underhill, we do not know where his sympathies lie with officers facing misconduct allegations, since he was the subject of them immediately before retiring and later coming down to Dorset and finally getting himself elected as the Dorset Police and Crime Commissioner. Martin Underhill is also a member of Rowena Lodge. The people of Dorset have had to put up with all kinds of Masonic hanky-panky from people in public office, ranging from councillors, council officers, police officers and members of the police authority. They've had to put up with this for years. As a matter of fact, the Dorset Masonic hanky-panky in public office formed a complete BBC documentary programme, Anything to Declare, which is also on our websites and video channels. What is of more concern to people in Dorset who voiced this to our organisation is the fact that they expect someone in a position like Martin Underhill to be free from Freemasonry. Someone who is the checks and balances to bring the police to account. They don't expect to be under an oath to support a brother Mason at all costs, which of course Underhill and all other brethren in his secret society are under that oath. One thing we do know is that Martin Underhill wrote to me stating that he has no intention of investigating officers that have retired or that are about to retire. Martin Underhill is made fully aware of government policy and CPS policy. He is also made fully aware of what the new legislation is. The fact that officers facing criminal allegations, officers that have retired facing long-standing criminal allegations, should be investigated. He knows that this is CPS policy. He knows this is Home Office policy, that historical crimes should be investigated. And yet, he has written to say that he has no intention of investigating officers who have retired or are about to retire. Underhill, it could be argued, is involved in a premeditated course of conduct that amounts to institutionalised misconduct. Misconduct in public office is an indictable criminal offence, something that Conor Burns can understand, and yet Mike Penning hasn't got the mental capacity to take this on board. Conor Burns also, when he was lobbied by his constituents, was told that Martin Underhill even admitted to his constituents that the Dorset senior police officers would not even discuss the misconduct allegations and their actions with Underhill. Well, if they won't discuss it with Underhill and he won't hold them to account, it's pointless him having the job as Dorset Police and Crime Commissioner, something that is worrying to Conor Burns, which is why he took it up with Penning, because this is an unprecedented case where there's criminal allegations against a chief constable that is not being dealt with by a police and crime commissioner, who is totally ignoring government legislation and CPS guidelines. Where does Burns go with this? What's more worrying is the fact that Mike Penning has a board. We don't know what this board is, but it is a board that Martin Underhill is involved with. We don't know if it's some sort of criminal justice board, or Mike Penning's got some sort of board involving police and crime commissioners. You can be certain, though, that they get paid remuneration or get paid expenses for being members of this board. What we do know about all these boards and quangos is that everybody that serves on a quango is well paid by the remuneration or so-called expenses. They're all coining it in. We also know that Underhill has been given by Mike Penning over £300,000 spread over 3 years for a victims unit. A victims unit. This is a joke to the victims in Dorset, who he will not address their problems and their allegations of police misconduct. What did Penning do with Conor Burns' complaints and allegations on behalf of his constituents? I'll tell you what Penning did with it. He referred them back to Martin Underhill and the IPCC. And of course, these victims that are associated with our organisation are all part of a wider campaign to have the IPCC done away with. Why do they want the IPCC done away with? Because, like all these senior police officers and crime commissioners, they're all pissing in the same pot. And they're pissing in the same pot at your expense. You, the ratepayers. They are taking the piss out of you and they are coining it in. Any taxpayers in Hell Hempstead who have watched this video, we thank you. Please remember, you may be struggling. You may be having measures of austerity put against you that the government keep talking about. But it seems senior police officers can all get their pensions, even with criminal allegations against them, when the government and CPS policy is that historical crimes have to be investigated and they have to be prosecuted, the same as paedophiles and sex offenders. And also the fact that it's all very well Penning and the likes of his people mouthing that they're going to do things to change things for the future. But what about the cases of the victims and the historical crimes that still have not been investigated and are largely being covered up at your expense? You, the taxpayers' expense. All these people are just a bunch of lampoons who are coining it in. They don't care about what's happened to victims in the past. All they care about is the fact that they're getting paid their remunerations and their expenses at you, the taxpayers' expense.